All right, Peter. Thanks for joining me today. I am Catherine Pinkerton, a operations manager with USG, and have done some project management in my past experiences and roles. But today I wanted to talk to you about your role as it is a full-time project manager. So if you would introduce yourself and your role within the organization and a little bit about your experience.
Thank you. My name is Pete Eckergren. I've been with USG for about 23 years. Spent part of my time in manufacturing, worked at our Sperry, Iowa plant, Placer City, California plant, did a stint in Chicago and then our Colgate, Minnesota plant before going back into Chicago. So I've out of the 23 years, I've been a project manager with varying levels of responsibility, mainly dollar wise. Better part of going on 12 years now.
You alluded a little bit to how the dollars have increased with the scale of the projects. Can you give a little bit more insight on how your projects vary in terms of costs, timelines, and different categories?
Um, Initially, when I first started off as a project manager in Chicago, you know, my scope of the size of my projects varied anywhere from a couple $1,000,000 all the way up to about $10 million. And you have about two or three of those that size. The further I progressed in project management, the projects have increased, 15 to 20 million, 30 million. Now, my biggest one I've ever worked on is the Otsego capacity increase, which is over $70 million right now. And from inception to development to execution and stuff, that's the better part of 3 years right now. So, some of the smaller projects, you might be, on the 2 to 5 to $10 million range, you might be working on those for 2 years. Other projects that I'm currently involved in, there's one I can't talk about yet. Hopefully it gets approved by the board yet this month. Is it'd be about a 4-year project when it's all said and done, and it's in excess of $200 million. So kind of starting off, you start off with smaller projects, and then as you gain experience and expertise, then you get more and more responsibility. Now, what's unique with USG right now is we're back in a growth spurt. We're looking to spend more money, and the projects are getting bigger and bigger. For a while there, a lot of the projects we worked on were on the smaller, more MOB type stuff, maintenance of business. Now it's, hey, we're looking at more growth, more opportunities. So the projects are getting larger again, which is a good thing for project managers.
Yeah, it's kind of a two-ended sword where it's very busy, but it's also a good thing and it can be more exciting. And I'm sure the projects can be a little bit more exciting and so forth. How do you feel like being a project manager within the building materials and manufacturing is unique? And working for corporate, you do have exposure to all of our business units. But I'm sure you also see a little bit of other project management roles just with people that you work with.
Um, I would say, as far as being a PM, it is kind of nice working for USG because we are very, from a manufacturing side, we make a lot of different things. We're just not making one widget. So, I'm a gypsum guy by trade, by default, but, spending time at Otsego on this project really expanded my, understanding of the paper making side. So it's been nice to kind of see the full breadth of what we offer: ceilings, joint treatment, paper, gypsum. I guess as far as being unique, um, and then some of our project managers are actually contractors, so they've worked in other industries. I would say for our size of company, I think it's still unique that we actually have an engineering department and traditional project managers. Much larger companies like oil companies and the guys that spend billions and billions of dollars a year, they would have a very large functional engineering department, project management department. But companies our size or even smaller don't to have actual engineering departments or project managers. They would basically outsource everything, outsource the roles that we're doing. So I think it's very advantageous to us to actually still have an engineering department and project managers. Because for me, actually starting off in manufacturing, it's really helped me understand the culture within USG, understand how the plants think, and kind of understand the customer better. I think it makes me a better project manager versus somebody that comes in off the street who knows project management, but they don't know the history, they don't know the culture, and then sometimes don't even know how to interact with plants who are in a sense our end customers.
I couldn't agree with you more, especially I'm thinking about some of our plants in very rural locations, and just the culture varies. And somebody currently on the manufacturing side, it is much appreciated of somebody that you don't, the devil's in the details, and a lot of those can just get skipped over with somebody who's not familiar with our workforce and just even the company's culture on how we look at safety and quality and expectations.
And kind of add to that too, as the company has gone through ups and downs, and I always joke about as I get older, the project engineers get younger and younger. So it's from my experience and working with plants. And you always be nice going to a plant. You always work with engineers and stuff, but they're getting younger. They're asked to do more stuff. So you don't always have those plant resources to rely on to help you within a project. But again, knowing how USG operates and the processes, I'm able to kind of help fill in the gaps. Especially if there's a young engineer that's just green to the world and stuff, and doesn't have much experience, and you got to help kind of coach them up and say, go talk to this person, or is so and so still working for you, stuff like that.
Yeah, so that is an interesting point, because you work, remotely for the majority of your projects, and then probably during execution, and then various times in the planning stages, will make site visits. How do you manage that remote work, and then also ensuring that the end user is getting what they need, and leads to a successful project?
That's a good question. The biggest advantage, especially for me and any of our project managers, is we still have USG construction. We got what we call owners reps who are a salary position. They're usually at a department manager level, midpoint or higher even, because they do run crews from day to day if we self-perform work. Um, them usually on a project of any size, we'll typically assign either an owner's rep or a USG construction supervisor, and they're really the boots on the ground every day. Then also working with any of the plant, project. It doesn't matter if it's a project engineer, or department manager, or foreman, or whatever. Following up with those guys. So really, my eyes and ears, boots on the ground is our owners reps. I don't necessarily say I talk to them every day, because I have learned over my career that those guys know what they're doing. They'll tell me, hey, if something's going wrong, everything's good. They'll call me if there's a safety issue. They'll call me if there's a cost issue, stuff like that, or a complete bust on the drawings, or something that needs to be addressed. So I rely on them quite a bit to give me the feedback and keep me informed of what's going on in the field. And then part of me too is I still like to go out to the plant once a month, especially during construction, because I like to see, I like to see construction. I like to see progress. And then once you get into like commission and startup, then usually the project manager are on site during that whole duration, just because it's kind of a different transition going from construction to commissioning. It's different resources involved, bringing different people in, working more directly with some of the plant maintenance folks, or the electricians, or the operators, or even bringing outside vendors. So it takes a little bit more coordination and actually have to be there in real time. So especially with COVID and the changes that we've gone through in the last 2.5 years as a country, it's kind of forced me to even reevaluate when do I really need to be on site, and kind of work around that. But would I like to be in the field more? Yes. Would my wife want me to be? No. But it becomes a balance, and knowing when you need to be on site versus is a phone call or a FaceTime call or whatever sufficient.
Right. Yeah, I think FaceTime has been able just to give eyes and ears to the boots on the ground to get back to you and give that level of visibility and just even with experience, knowing what questions to ask definitely comes in handy. What's one mistake that you've experienced, or one experience, should I say, maybe not mistake, that you'll always remember and has created a good habit?
I guess one thing for me is I've always learned that I make mistakes every day, and I've always thought, until I understood that I make mistakes and that I can learn from them, and that's a good thing. So I guess that's one takeaway there. I guess the one thing that is stuck with me is sometimes you get assigned to a project, and um, when I first started with engineering, I was basically we were speeding up all the existing board lines, and my first two projects, one was speeding up Sweetwater number three and speeding up Plaster City number three. Very similar scopes of work. Granted, the aids and machines were different, the speeds were different, but the scopes of work were very similar. And I was even having the same, I had the same design engineers, I had the same programmer. And when we did Sweetwater number three, everything went really smoothly. All the items went really smoothly. Programming went smoothly. I was like, man, this is easy. So when we got to do Plaster City number three, I was thinking, okay, everything's going to run just like Plaster City number or Sweetwater number three. I'm going to have the same mindset. We're going to do the same things. Kind of go to the same thing. Where I got bit pretty bad is at Sweetwater, we upgraded all the PLC. Well, at Plaster City, we never upgraded the PLC. So depending on the age of the PLC and the vendor, you couldn't do certain things. So our commissioning time on one outage got completely blown up because I assumed that we could do exactly what we did at Sweetwater number three, not understanding that the PLCs were different and Ashley Furman could not program in the same way. So I guess my takeaway from that was, even though they're similar, you always got to step back and ask what's different. And it's always stuck with me. And that was over. I mean, we sped up Plaster number three back in 2007, and I still remember that as a mistake, and I learned from it. But it's, again, even though I can't, I guess another way of looking at it is I can't be complacent thinking, oh, this is just going to be easy. We'll just do it like we did the other one. Plants are unique, personalities are different. Even though we think the machines are similar, there's always changes, either through engineering, capital upgrades, or what the plant's done over the years to improve their machines.
Right. Yeah, even if the deliverable is the same and the way to get there could be very different. And just for the listeners, Plaster City and Sweetwater are two locations, one in California and Texas, of board lines that have been around since those lines that he was referring to, I believe, since the 50s. Um, or so. One last question that I wanted to ask you is, you mentioned, dealing with new engineers that are often very green at plants, and while you're managing the project, sometimes it may feel like you're almost managing them, or really helping give them hints and just helping guide them along the project management as they may be your boots on the ground. What is a piece of advice you'd give to a project manager getting into this role?
A good question. The biggest thing, a couple things. One is basically don't don't think of yourself as needing to be the know-it-all, needing to know every detail, tracking down every piece of information. And I've seen that with any young engineers I've dealt with in the past is they get this thing of, well, I'm an engineer, I went to school for this. People at the plant should think I should know everything. And I always tried to stress with them, no matter what, is don't feel like you need to know everything. Just need to know who you should talk to and start to learn how to ask the right questions. Talk to the maintenance foreman, talk to the electrical foreman, talk to the general foreman. Those guys should be your best friends during projects because they'll make your life easier. If you don't talk to them and get them involved and engaged up front, then one, you're not going to have a very successful project. Two, they're going to be griping at you all the time during startup. So again, just trying to make sure they understand that they don't have to know everything, that there's other people they can talk to, and it's just part of their learning process that, just get to know, just ask those questions. And, unfortunately, you go to be a project engineer and you're not necessarily going to be a project manager down the road. In 2